Hey, what's up guys? My name is Jason Schmaltz and I'm an AMGA Rock Guide apprentice, and today I want to talk about climbing accidents. This past weekend we had a fatal accident at one of the crags that I guide at. It wasn't our party, it was another party, but I do want to go over the specifics of that event. And then I want to kind of zoom out and say, are climbing accidents in general totally preventable? And really explore that with you guys. So first, let's talk about the accident that happened. At the crag that I climb at, they have mussy hooks at the top of a lot of their routes. And I don't own any mussy hooks, so these two alpine draws will be represented the mussy hooks. And the way that the party had the rope rigged for the last person was they had the rope belaying through the mussy hooks, and then they had above the mussy hooks a locking carabiner that they were belaying through with the mindset, I believe, I'm assuming here, but I believe they thought this would reduce the wear on the mussy hooks themselves. They had a climber who had climbed a couple outdoor routes go up to clean this. The only thing they were going to do was retrieve the locking carabiner. The mussy hooks were going to remain in place. So at this point, when I talk about what the climber did at the top, I'm assuming the most likely case. This hasn't been released in a report, but I'm assuming the most likely case. That the climber approached the mussy hooks, undid the locking carabiner, took that off and put it on their belt, and one way or another was above the mussy hooks, and I'll talk about specifically why this might have been, was above the mussy hooks, and when they went to get back down to lower, the rope went across the mussy hooks and basically through the gates like a back clip, and then they were exposed to a fall, and they in fact did fall and were killed. So just to address the elephant in the room, when you're using mussy hooks on a climb, you never want to get the rope or yourself above the plane of the basket of the mussy hooks. The mussy hook actually has a little bit of a lip at the bottom of the gate, and your rope can get caught on that lip and actually push through the gate and become undone. So very important that your direction of pull on the rope is always down. So I share that example with you because as I go through this next talk about preventing accidents in general, I'm going to refer back to this example many times. So as we talk about zooming out, are accidents in climbing preventable? I want us to think about probability and consequence. Okay, so probability, let's just think in order of magnitude. Is it 1 out of 10 times, 1 out of 100, 1 out of 1,000, 1 out of 10,000 times? Okay, and then on the consequence, let's think about low consequence to high consequence. So let's think about cut or scrape, first aid, broken bone, fatal accident. You may even have something a little bit more granular there like hospital visit. Okay, and then let's think about a matrix here. And so the matrix that you have up on your screen right now is representative of other industries that I'm in where we talk about risk management and what we can put in place to either reduce the consequence or decrease the probability. And we use the order of magnitude on the probability because it's really hard to know exactly the probability of something to happen. So think about a given probability and then having layers of protection that can move you up or down by an order of magnitude. Now, if we think about it, 1 out of 10, 1 out of 100 times, that's not making me feel so good. However, if it's just a cut or a scrape, well, that probably is going to happen 1 out of 10 times. If I take a lead fall, I'm going to get a cut or a scrape. But on a fatal consequence or a broken bone consequence, 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 100 is not acceptable. I would want that to be in the 1 out of 1,000 range or the 1 out of 10,000 range. Now, we can't get to 1 out of a million bajillion, basically impossible. Just the same way as it's not impossible for a meteor to come down and hit your house right now. But it's very, very unlikely. And that's the perspective that I'm going to go at in this talk of, hey, can we get a high consequence to extremely unlikely, and then that's acceptable. So as we look at this matrix one more time, you'll see that there's colors, okay? And these colors are different for every person. This is a little bit personal on your risk tolerance, but I would say these colors that you see in general are correct. Where the green is totally acceptable, that's a given on our day. The yellow is kind of a gray area where there might be some environmental conditions or conditions of the day that impact what we might do to increase or decrease probability or consequence, and then the red is just not acceptable. The red is stuff that we are going to not be in this range of high probability or high consequence or both, and we will have systems in place to keep us out of this zone at all times. And it's my plea in this talk that you can always be in the green or maybe barely on the yellow, which keeps you out of the range of any kind of serious climbing accident by following these 5 major steps. So the first thing to focus on to get yourself orders of magnitude less probability of an accident is your group makeup. So when you're constructing your group for a climbing outing, the first thing I want you to think about is experienced climbers or guides versus non-experienced climbers, and trying to make this ratio conservative. So normally when we guide people, I think the industry standard is 1 guide to 6 clients as the max. We actually decrease that. We do 1 to 5 to allow our guides to make sure that they have enough focused attention on each client and the group as a whole to be able to manage risk. So as you're putting your group together, and let's say you have 12 or 15 people from the climbing gym who are stoked to climb outside, never done it before, totally psyched, and then the 1 guy that's going to take them out, that would probably not be good from a risk management perspective, and quite honestly from an enjoyability perspective as well. There's probably not enough ropes and equipment so that everybody can get a sufficient amount of climbs in during the day. So think about ways that you can adjust that ratio, either bring a couple more experienced climbers or just hire a guide to fill in the gaps and make yourself all feel better. Even the leader will learn something from an experienced guide. The second thing I want you to think about in the makeup of your group is the quality of the leader's knowledge. What I've seen a lot of times out at the crag is people leading groups who have only climbed outside themselves 1, 2, maybe 3 times. And the problem with that is there's some false confidence both of the leader, but then of the people in the group as well, where they think, oh, this leader is going to be able to handle all scenarios, this leader is going to make sure and ensure our safety and enjoyability, when in fact 2 or 3 times of climbing outside may not be the right experience. So something to ask yourself, is my leader experienced? Of course you can, if the leader has certifications, that helps, but really what you want to think about is, is a leader well-versed in self-rescue? If somebody gets stuck on the crag or needs to be helped off the crag, or there's an abnormal non-textbook situation in climbing, does the leader have enough knowledge in self-rescue to be able to get that person safely out of harm's way back to a safe space while not endangering anybody else, including themselves? And I recommend, if you're leading groups, okay, you don't need to go get certified to be an AMGA guide for sure, but hey, why don't you take a 1 or 2 day self-rescue course to really expand your skill set on using the ropes and other tools that you have to get out of different situations. The last thing you want to be as a leader is just saying, man, I hope everything goes textbook today so I don't have to try to rescue somebody with the rescue skills that I don't have. The third principle I want you to think about is redundancy, especially redundancy in people learning new skills, either cleaning anchors or leading, and how you can add redundancy to basically prevent that person from being exposed to a total ground fall. So when I think about redundancy in cleaning anchors, why not, as the person climbs up and is finagling and doing whatever they are at the anchors, have them leave the last quick draw clipped in below? Okay, so if they mess up, okay, yeah, sure, they're going to take a fall. Yeah, it's not going to be pleasant, but they're not going to hit the ground. If somebody's learning how to lead climb on sport, why not go ahead and clip the first bolt for them? Or if they're going to be leading on trad and learning to do their first trad lead or maybe second trad lead. When I have people attempting their first trad lead, a lot of times I'll go place 1 or 2 pieces along the route that I want to know for sure are good, so that when they get to those pieces they clip and I'm not relying on their placements. They still get to place all the way up to those pieces and then beyond, but I know for sure, hey, you know, once we get to 15 feet or whatever, I know that we're not going to have a ground fall, and then maybe have another one halfway up the route. So I know for sure as we go to the top, we're not going to have a ground fall. As we go back to our matrix, on a first time anchor cleaning or first time leading trad, if the person's left to their own devices, the probability of them failing is probably between the 1 in 10 and 1 in 100 in having a severe consequence. But if we put those measures in place, redundancy of having a quick draw below the anchors, redundancy of having bomb replacements made by a seasoned trad climber. Now I move from that matrix from the maybe 1 to 100 or somewhere in there to maybe the 1 to 1,000, maybe even the 1 to 10,000. Okay, so now we're starting to get into the acceptability range of the activity, and I'm feeling a lot better as a trip leader. Fourth thing we can do to prevent accidents of executing new work processes in the vertical is practice them in the horizontal first. You guys have seen my Skillz Board that I use in almost every video. I've really got my money's worth with this product. I practice on this thing all the time, where I had the muscle memory. I can practice off-case scenarios. I can talk to other people while I practice or have them practice. And I'll bring this thing out to the crag. You can see it's got a strap, so I can strap it to trees or whatever. And I get to practice with my group on the ground while somebody else is practicing the first time in the vertical. And that's not really what you want. If you want to get yourself a Skillz board that you can take out to the crag with you and practice in the horizontal before you step up to the vertical environment, you can check out the promo code in the description and get a discount on it. Another way you can decrease the probability of a fall on cleaning anchors is why not clean anchors at a belay site where there's a good stance. The accident that I highlighted at the beginning of the video, there was not a good stance, which is why my guess is the climber pushed up on the top of the crag to try to unweight the rope and take that carabiner off, where if there had been a good stance where they could stand and do whatever they wanted to at the anchor, not only would they have been able to remove the carabiner more safely, but then even if they had messed up, they wouldn't have fallen because they would have been standing and they would have realized, oh, I'm off belay, which would not have been a fun moment, but at least they'd just be standing there and figure out how to get back on belay. Last thing to try to keep your group safe. In the past, there's been a prioritization of wear and tear of equipment over safety and less complex systems. Of recent years, I'd say in the last 10 years, the paradigm has shifted to saying, hey, we will sacrifice wear and tear of equipment in order to prioritize safety. So you've seen me highlight on my channel some more efficient ways to clean anchors that maybe do slightly wear the anchors as you get lowered on them, but you stay on belay the whole time. In the example I showed, the group was utilizing a locking carabiner to try to minimize wear and tear on a beefy mussy hook. And that was unnecessary, number one, but number two, if they hadn't been doing that, that probably would have moved their probability down by an order of magnitude, maybe even 2 orders of magnitude, because there would have been nothing to even finagle with. The climber would have just climbed up and then been lowered down. So if you're in a situation of cleaning anchors or trying to do a technical descent and you're not quite sure how to do the technical descent while minimizing wear, go ahead and lower through the anchors or the fixed equipment in a way that maybe wears them slightly, but gets you down safe. These things are made to last for years, and I think everybody who's watching this video can agree that a life is worth way more than a $30 Petzl anchor configuration. So at the end of the day, execute a system that you know is safe and don't really worry about the equipment or even leaving equipment behind. Hey, I hope this video gave you some perspective on accidents and methods that you can use to move down in orders of magnitude of probability of a serious consequence happening or decrease the consequence itself. This matrix approach is used in a lot of other industries for hazard management, and I hope that you find some value in the climbing industry, adventure industry, to make your trips more safe too. If you have any questions on it, on how I maybe assume probabilities or maybe even how to move consequences up and down on levels of severity, let me know in the comments. I'll try to get to them as soon as possible. Thanks, and I'll see you out on the crag.